So I am in Radford, Virginia. My friend Brittany, right there in Tennille, brought me out here. We're staying at St. Albans Sanatorium for the weekend. And this is a monument to Mary Draper Ingles. She was born at Philadelphia, 1732, died at Ingles Ferry, Virginia, 1815. The first white bride married west of the Allegheny Mountains, captured by the Indians, 1755 at Draper's Meadow, now Blacksburg, Virginia, and carried to Ohio. Escaping from her captors, she made her way home in winter, alone, some 800 miles through a trackless wilderness, guided only by the streams, and subsisting on nuts and roots for 40 days. No greater exhibition of female heroism, courage, and endurance are recorded in the annals of frontier history. To commemorate her noble character and wonderful heroism, this monument is erected of the stones from the chimney of the cabin in which she lived and died after her return from captivity by her descendants. Mary Draper Ingles. Virginia history can lay claim to one of the most dramatic and inspirational captivity stories of all time, that of Mary Draper Ingles' escape from the Shawnee in the autumn of 1755 in her long walk through the wilderness. The events of the Drapers' Meadows attack and the Mary ordeal have become legendary, establishing her as Virginia's most premier heroine. Most of the information we have today about the events that summer day in 1755 come from two 19th century accounts based on oral history passed down from the Preston and the Ingles families. In the 1830s, John Ingles, son of William and Mary Ingles, wrote a history of the family based on his parents' account that he heard himself. Also in 1843, Letitia Floyd, daughter of William and Susanna Preston, wrote an account of the story she had heard as a child. Thing is, these two family histories differ substantially when it comes to content and style, yet they have both been generally regarded as authentic and reliable sources of information. However, we may find it necessary to question their reliability and wonder if we can ever know what really happened.
This is the most accepted version of this story. They called it Draper's Meadow, a small outpost of cabins on the edge of the New River, nestled deep in the wilderness of colonial Virginia. The year was 1755, and the frontier was wild, raw, and dangerous. Families had come west chasing land and freedom, but what they found was violence waiting in the trees. On July 8, 1755, that violence came for them. The Drapers' Meadow Massacre would become one of the bloodiest frontier attacks in Virginia's history, leaving behind shattered families, missing children, and scars still remembered to this day. At the time, Drapers' Meadow was a small settlement located in what is now Blacksburg, Virginia, right near where Virginia Tech University stands today. The settlement was made up of just a few families, mostly Scots-Irish and German immigrants who had pushed west into Shawnee hunting grounds. The French and Indian War had just begun. British settlers were fighting the French for control of North America, and many native tribes, including the Shawnee, had allied with the French. In July of that year, after a major British defeat, a band of Shawnee warriors came south to strike a blow on the frontier. Their target was Draper's Meadow. The attack came fast and without warning. There were no fences, no guards, and no warning shots. Just sudden shouting, smoke, and blood. Colonel James Patton, a well-known landowner and military figure, had arrived just days earlier from Staunton. He was visiting family and bringing supplies. A towering man over 6 feet tall and weighing more than 300 pounds, Patton was armed, but the surprise was too swift. He was shot and killed, and his body was scalped. Eleanor Draper, wife of John Draper, was also killed in the attack. She had been tending to her home when she was struck down. A German settler named Caspar Barrier was another victim, shot and scalped near one of the cabins. Sources vary, but it's believed that 5 to 7 people were killed and 5 others were taken captive. Among those taken were Mary Draper Ingles, daughter of Eleanor Draper, her 2 sons, Thomas and George Ingles. Betty Robertson Draper, Mary's sister-in-law, and an enslaved or indentured servant, possibly named Jamie. The captives were marched for weeks through what is now West Virginia into the Ohio River Valley, eventually arriving at a Shawnee village near present-day Chillicothe, Ohio. The dead were buried quickly. Their bodies were laid in shallow graves, most likely just beyond the edge of the cabins close to where they fell. The survivors didn't have the tools or time for ceremony. With the fear of a second attack looming, the burials were hurried and silent. Today, no marked graves remain. Historians believe the burial sites lie beneath or near the Upper Duck Pond at Virginia Tech. Though the exact cabin locations are uncertain, archaeological studies place Draper's Meadow roughly northwest of the modern-day drill field. Mary Draper Ingles' story did not end in captivity. Months later, she escaped, traveling over 600 miles on foot through mountains and wilderness, surviving on berries, roots, and raw river mussels. She made it back to Virginia with nothing but scars and memory. One of her sons, George, was never returned. It is believed he was adopted by the Shawnee and remained with them the rest of his life. Mary's escape began sometime in late fall of 1755, alongside another captive woman, likely a Dutch or German woman, also held by the Shawnee. With no maps, no weapons, and no food, the two women followed the rivers south, first the Ohio, then the Kanawha, then the New River. That was all Mary had to guide her, rivers and memory. She'd paid close attention to landmarks on the way in and used those to get out. They crossed the Appalachian Mountains on foot, barefoot and ragged. Along the way, they ate roots, tree bark, and wild grapes, and even scavenged from the carcass of a dead buffalo. At one point, starving and delirious, the two women reportedly drew lots to decide who would be eaten if one of them died. But they kept going. Eventually, deep in the woods, the two women separated. Mary continued alone. After more than 40 days in the wild, she finally reached the edge of civilization, somewhere near the New River, not far from where she'd been taken months earlier. Locals found her collapsed and nearly dead. She was returned home and reunited with her husband, William Ingles, at the rebuilt settlement near present-day Radford, Virginia. Mary would go on to have several more children and live to an old age, running a ferry business with her husband across the New River. Her story was later told in journals, regional histories, and even a novel based on her life. She never forgot the journey, and history hasn't either.
The Mary Draper Ingles story of her captivity and escape from an Indian village and her long walk home through the wilderness has been based largely on these two family histories, although historians generally agree that she was captured and she did survive a long walk home. Most of the other details of her story are in dispute. The cause of much of this confusion can be traced back to the two stories. That being said, what we do know is that people died. They were buried in a mass grave. It is something that Virginia has very widely embraced. There is monuments of her around, something that they very much hold on to as part of their very rich history. Something did happen, that we do know, and Mary is a survivor.
So we're at the Westview Cemetery in Radford. In memory of First Lieutenant John Thomas Ingles, missing in action over Germany, October 9th, 1943, a tall, blue-eyed boy with a strong, lovable personality, an Eagle Scout company captain, John Marshall High School cadet student, Cornell University, pilot of a flying fortress, air medal with oak leaf cluster, a gallant soldier and gentleman. So these seem to all be Ingles here. There's a lot of Ingles. Laura Ingles, Mary Ingles. Kind of remind you of my friends over there. It's a very pretty cemetery. Amanda McFarland died February 1913. W.H. McFarland died June 1911. Oscar Weigel, 1850 to 1916. Locomotive engineer. Sarah Buchanan, wife of W.A. McNeil, 1846-1909, mother. A lot of young people here. Emily Ramsey, 1839-1921. So I'm pretty sure Mary Ingles' husband is buried here, but there's a lot of Ingles. Maybe this is him over here. And sorry about the wind, guys. I can't really do anything. I do have a windsock, but I didn't think I'd need it, so I didn't bring it. Wow, there's so many Ingles. God is our refuge and our strength. Thomas Ingles, born 1852. Catherine McGlanahan, wife of Thomas, 1817, 1887. Beloved. They're all Ingles.